Welcome to today's ILTA YouTube video entitled Who Keeps It Current? I'm your moderator, Christiane Matuch. I'm a legal innovation manager with Greenberg Traurig, and I am so happy to be joined by Nwabueze, Knowledge Counsel for Antitrust and Competition Law at Mayer Brown. All right, Ora, give us a little background of what your role is.
Okay, so after practicing at several firms and at the Justice Department Antitrust Division, I took this role. In the role, I do training, I help business development connect with the antitrust practice on RFPs, on presentations to clients. I run the thought leadership program, which is basically articles that we publish and send to clients, articles that we publish and send to journals, third parties, podcasts, webinars, so that sort of stuff. And I do some training for associates, particularly young associates who have expressed an interest in antitrust, and just basically get them up to speed. And in general, I'm just a resource for the practice
Yeah.
when they're trying to connect with the broader firm, PR and other elements of the firm.
That's great. So you are definitely perfectly positioned to, speak with us today on our topic. And so let's get into this. Knowledge projects are usually front loaded, right? It takes a while to curate the content, set up system, plans for change management. But then the question is, how do we keep this content fresh and updated, right? So my first question is, who in a firm is best positioned to oversee content update? Which individuals or groups should be involved in this?
Um, in our firm, our knowledge lawyers are embedded in the practice that they support. We've all practiced law in that area for a long time, and so it tends to be us. Because we are being embedded, we are aware of what's going on. So if there's a new presentation being put together for a client, so that's a knowledge resource. We are usually involved in drafting it. We certainly know what's happening, and so it's it really helps us to know what's new, what's being created. Once we have that kind of information, we go to our knowledge systems and figure out where it's best placed. And in that process, we kind of look and say, all right, what has this development done to this asset, this data asset? Is it is it truly new? Does it replace something? Does something need to come off? Does something need to be adjusted or edited? And so it's sort of an organic process where embedded in the practice, you know what's going on, you know what's being written, you know what precedents are being created, and our knowledge lawyers generally will then take that and assess where it belongs and how it impacts what's already there, get rid of some obsolete stuff, move things around, adjust things that exist. And so that's usually how it works. I will say that if you're at a place where you have systems ago, that's an envious position to be in. But I do think that who is going to keep it current is a question that should be asked at the very beginning of even developing systems. So I think that's a huge issue. You got to know who's going to use it, who's going to be the gatekeeper, because as you're building it out, so many questions come up, so many choices these days, and knowing who's going to use it really helps you answer some of that.
I agree. I think it's a great point to make that, users are also the ones who do some gatekeeping so that stays connected. Yeah, on to the next. So, is there like an update cadence, potentially, tied to the type of content? Did you see some correlations there? And if so, how does this work? How often do you need to update these kind of systems?
I think that some of it's like jazz, right? It's sort of like improvisation because, you're working on projects that constantly require you to assess your knowledge resources. And so the cadence is sort of set by workflow. And so it's not necessarily once a month or once every 6 months or annually. It might be, 3 times a month because you worked on 3 projects that required you to figure out where are we? How does this change the database? How does it make it more, novel as opposed to obsolete? And so you're going back, and I hope that anyone who's doing this, when they add something, they look at what's there and figure out how it impacts it. And so the cadence is sort of set that way. If things are slow and you're not updating it, I think monthly it can't hurt. but certainly for certain knowledge resources annually, for sure,
Yeah. So
regardless of
it,
what you
yeah,
find.
exactly. So basically it is tied slightly to, how often did you use this? And then other content, might not come up as often, doesn't need updating quite as often, right?
Right. And in certain practice areas, there could be a huge case, for instance, a Supreme Court case, that completely, throws things on its head. And that might dictate cadence, And so, knowledge lawyers, it's sort of our job to be aware of what's happening in our area of law. And whether we create work product out of that or not, it might tell you, all right, let's take a look at what we're saying to clients, what we said to clients. Let's assess whether this changes anything. And again, that sets the cadence. But I think definitely a year, maybe monthly. And apart from that, it's really just as work comes in and as things develop.
Yeah. Yeah, great points. All right. And so I'm curious, like, what are some of the lessons learned or best practices that you have come across? So it's like, one of those good information nuggets that people who just get into the space or are building systems could use.
Okay, so we're not saying horror stories.
Yeah, well, those are always educational.
Okay. I think they're kind of the same in a way, but not to be too dramatic. I think that it's very difficult, especially at large firms with very busy people, to really feel like you have your arms around, the work product, that you have everything that's out there that the various lawyers in your practice have produced, and that you can curate from that. And so you need, especially, getting to in this hypothetical, getting to the place where it's about keeping it current, even getting there, just grabbing what you need to be at a place where you feel like you're 80-90% of everything that's a crown jewel type document that you want in the database or whatever system you're using. Um, and so the horror story is always when you are putting together, for instance, an article or a presentation, and you're going to a client, for instance, to do a training, and you find out, hopefully before, but yeah, wow, I can imagine after, that somebody has something on their hard drive that's better, or that could have saved a lot of time, or worst case scenario, that sort of contradicts something that you're about to say. And so it's generally when our department does not have the most current or the greatest breadth of work product. So that's usually the issue. And everyone works differently. Some people really still save stuff on their hard drives. Some people really buy into uploading things into document management systems. And so the more we can scrape hard drives and scrape, to do searches, almost like in litigation when you're taking discovery internally to try to identify what might be good documents. We do that. And with AI and other tools going forward, we'll be able to get from 80% to 90, and hopefully above that. But the horror stories are usually just missing some really good stuff, or some stuff that might say something a little different than you want to say, when you're trying to figure out what your actual precedents are.
Yeah. I think those are great points, and anybody who works in a law firm knows exactly what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
I think this is really good advice. And also looking forward that, it's like being complete at the outset is one thing, but then having the continuous process of, finding these things as they get refined, maybe on people's personal computers as opposed to in the system. So
Mhm.
grabbing all of that, I think is really good advice.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
embedding knowledge folks, whether they're lawyers or they're specialists, in practices, I think really helps. It really just, when you're in meetings with your practice, you hear about what's happening. And I think that really, that's sort of, a non-tech way of dealing with it. It's a human interaction. But if you just know about it, you have a chance to know, hey, I heard this in this meeting, like there might be some work product out of this matter, out of this case, or out of this project, and it's not in not on our intranet, or it's not in our knowledge bank. So you know where to go look for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really speaks for, these knowledge folks need to be like, they need to have boots on the ground. They need to be in those meetings. They need to hear what's going on, right?
Yep.
In order to know when things change or need to get updated.
Yep.
So that is actually really great advice. Love it. All right. Well, time's up. Thank you so much, Or, for sharing your insights on this ILTA digital education topic. And for those tuning in, I hope you found this session valuable. And be sure to keep out an eye for more exciting KM and marketing content coming soon your way. Thanks again, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very much. Take care.